What is going on, y'all? This is Pay Me in Dividends, and today is March 13th, 2025. Now, check it out, right? The first thing you'll notice is my portfolio have dropped significantly, right? But it's not what you think, all right? So, if you remember last time I gave you guys a portfolio update, I was in the 80,000s. I was right above 80,000. I was around 80 to 82. It kind of fluctuated a bit, but my portfolio did take a dip during this recent market behavior. But the reason for the significant drop is because I actually made some changes to the portfolio. The first thing I did was I paid off my margin by selling some of my holdings, and so I had a little over $10,000 in margin, sold that off. So now my entire portfolio is all equity, all cash. I'm no longer using margin. Not right now. I think I'm going to chill on a margin for a bit. I was already pretty conservative with margin. My brokerage was allowing me to use, I believe, upwards to $70,000 in margin, and the most that I tapped into at any particular time was about 14 or 15 grand. So I was still very conservative with it, and I just made an executive decision to get rid of it completely. So that's the first change I made. The second change I made is I sold out of AIPI, I sold out of NVDY, and I sold out of AMZP. And this may come as a surprise because I spoke so highly of these ETFs. But in this video, I just want to give you guys an explanation and a breakdown as to why I got rid of those positions and what I added in their place moving forward. All right. So the first, the position I want to talk about basically is QQQI, right? So this is what I did, right? I still have my 1,000 shares of Misty. Misty is not going anywhere, right? I do have an insane cost basis, $32 per share. So on paper, I am down significantly. However, I have received over half of my initial investment back just in dividend income. I've owned these 1,000 shares since September of 2024. And so within the first year of owning them, I should have my initial investment back. So I'm not going to get rid of Misty, and I'll probably hold it after that as well once I get my initial investment back. But I talk about that in other videos as well. So we'll leave Misty to the side for this video. But we also have XDTE, which I already had as well. I'm holding on to that. As you can see, I have a fractional share here, right? Because I do have XDTE on drip. This is the Roundhill S&P 500 covered call strategy ETF, and they pay every single week. And so I just put this one on drip so that it can continue to accumulate more shares every single week. And then what I did is I swapped out AIPI, NVDY, and AMZP for QQQI, and the rest of the cash that was in my brokerage when I sold those three holdings, I left to pay down that margin. Again, that's why you see this significant drop. But again, now this is all equity, and I'm no longer using margin for the time being. So as you guys, could probably guess, my monthly income is naturally going to drop a lot. However, moving forward, it is going to be a lot more consistent because I have QQQI, right? So one thing I want to show you guys is I want to take a step back, and I want to show you this video. This was my first upload, right? First upload 1 year ago, as you can see, February 25th, 2024. So about a year ago when I first started this channel. And here you can see my portfolio, right? So this was my portfolio a year ago, and these were my holdings. So you'll see that I have YMAX, I have FEPI. FEPI was still very, very new at the time. I have SPY-I, PDI, and ABR, which is a REIT, and PDI is somewhat like a closed-end fund. But you'll notice here SPY-I, right, from NEOS. So SPY-I is an ETF that I owned about a year ago. So I've been familiar with NEOS for a while now, and SPY-I has a really, really good track record, but I decided to go with QQQI because they pay a slightly higher dividend, right? They pay a 14% dividend yield, and SPY-I, which is based off of the S&P 500, pays a 12% dividend yield. So there's a couple of things I want to look at when it comes to QQQI, right? The first thing I want to look at is, let's take a look at the chart. So if we max out, right, and we look at inception, if we forget what's been going on the past month or so in the market, right, and we just go from inception all the way to its peak in February of 2025, right, last month, we can see that it's actually up 8% during that time, right, while paying that consistent 14% dividend yield. So one thing I like about this ETF, it is down at the moment, obviously, because the entire market is down. But one thing I like about this ETF is that when the market is up, they do allow this ETF space to grow, right? They're paying good dividend. They're paying a good dividend yield, but it's not excessive to the point where it is almost holding you back on the upside, right? So you're not going to get the entire upside of the NASDAQ on this ETF, obviously, right? It is an income ETF, but you will catch some of that upside. And you know what? After some reflection, maybe you can say I got a bit spooked during these recent past couple weeks, but I kind of looked at my portfolio and I had to ask myself, okay, long term, right? Think about the video that I put out a couple of days ago, living off dividends, maybe moving to a different country, stretching your money farther, right? If that is something that you want to do, which is something that I do have in mind, right? You need to have some sort of consistent income. You know, things like Misty are great because they pay massive dividends, but the dividends fluctuate on a monthly basis, right? Same thing with XDTE. To a certain extent, they are a bit more consistent, but to a certain extent, them as well. But something like QQQI, you basically know exactly what you're going to get on a monthly basis based off of how many shares you own, right? So if we go down here to the distributions, we can see all of 2024, the distributions have been very, very consistent. There's not much of a variance here, right? You can see the lowest payment was 58 cents per share and the highest payment was 64 cents per share. So that's only a 5 cents difference for the entire year, right? And then starting off for this year, 2025, in January they paid 62 cents and last month they paid 61 cents. So it's very, very predictable income. And so this is why I chose to go with QQQI, right? Also their tax treatment, right? They use a certain tax treatment that is beneficial to income investors, especially if you hold this ETF in a taxable brokerage account. I am not a tax expert, so I would advise that you do a bit more research into that, but it is very tax efficient in your taxable brokerage account. One more thing I want to show you guys is I want to compare it to one of its competitors, right, which is JEPQ. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the results since the inception of QQQI, because JEPQ is a bit newer, and we can see that since as of January 2024 up until now, right, up until March 12th, which was yesterday, we can see that QQQI has slightly outperformed JEPQ, right? JEPQ is the NASDAQ income ETF by JP Morgan, and we can see that QQQI has slightly outperformed it, right? By about 1%, nothing crazy, but they have slightly outperformed it. If you look at the chart, QQQI versus the JP Morgan JEPQ, it is damn near identical if you look at the chart, but it has slightly outperformed. And the bigger factor here for me was the fact that they pay a 14% dividend yield, and JEPQ, I believe, fluctuates anywhere from 10 to 12% on any given month. And another thing about JEPQ, their dividends fluctuate every single month. The distribution amount, the actual amount per share, it fluctuates so much on a month-to-month basis, so you never know exactly how much you're going to receive in income, whereas QQQI is a lot more predictable. And I think if you are planning on eventually withdrawing these type of dividends, you want something that's a bit more predictable, right? So my plan for QQQI moving forward is I'm going to continue buying into it. I'm going to keep it on drip in my portfolio. QQQI and XDTE are both on drip. dividend reinvestment plan, right? Misty is not on drip. I do not plan on adding more shares of Misty. I also don't plan on selling any shares of Misty. I'm going to continue to take this dividend income and pour it into these two funds, right? XDTE, which is based off the S&P 500. They pay every single week, every Friday. And QQQI, which is based off the NASDAQ and has some capital appreciation behind it as well. And they pay on a monthly basis. So I'm going to continue to, from this point moving forward, I'm going to start using Misty dividends to add to these two positions right here, XDTE and QQQI, and keep these on drip at the same time as well. All right, so I'm going to continue trying to build these two positions, and that is the game plan moving forward. So again, you guys will see a big difference in my portfolio moving forward, and I think this is a great time for me to make this change because the market is red, right? Year to date, the S&P is down 5%, right? Over the past month, it's down 9.5%. And today it's down almost 1.5%, right? So when you think about it this way, on average, the S&P returns about 10% a year, more or less, right? Depending on who you ask, but let's say 10% a year, the S&P returns on average. So year to date, we are already in March, right? So year to date, from January 1st of 2025 up until now, it is already down 5%. So assuming that the S&P will continue to perform as usual, you know, in the long term, of course, it's going to have its years where it's down. It's going to have its years where it exceeds 10% gains. But if it continues to go up in the long run, which I believe that it will, because these corrections happen all the time, this is just part of the ebbs and flows of the market. But I think these are the best times to start pouring money into the market in dollar cost averaging, because even if the year ends red, you are accumulating shares at a discounted price, right? So that is my game plan moving forward. You guys let me know in the comments, what do you think? What do you guys think about NEO's funds? Again, this is something that I've been investing in for a while now. I kind of got away from it for a while and really jumped in the deep end with these super high yield dividend funds. But as you see, a year ago I did have SPY, and so I kind of had to reel myself back and kind of get back to the basics here, right? So you guys let me know, what do you think about QQQI? They also have SPY, which is based off of the S&P 500, and they also have IWMI, which is based off the Russell 2000. I'm not a big fan of this one, although it does pay 14%, but I would rather be tied to one of the major indexes like the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ 100, and both of these index have a lot of overlap as well, especially the large cap big tech companies are typically in both of these indexes. So neither here or there. You guys let me know in the comments, what do you think? As always, I appreciate you stopping by the channel, and I will catch you in the next video.